There we go. Recording in process. That might not be a good thing if I forget to record this, because then everybody's going to ask for the replay. It's like, oh, sorry, I forgot to record. I guess you should have showed up live. What'd you think of that nice spring May weather we had on Monday?
I'm all for moisture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a surprise to wake up to snow, but the moisture is good.
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing is in March, some of the areas were 60-65% of average year water content. And now with these last few storms that we've had, the Weiser area is at 241% of normal moisture content.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, we kind of need it, but of course they said it's too little, too late. So it's like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I keep watching the reservoir levels on their water acclimation site to see how they're progressing. Are they filling up?
Yeah, it's going to be, there's still a lot of snow up there that needs to melt and come on down. So we'll see. So Andy, you made it. Can you hear us okay?
I think so.
Well, good. And we got you too. How about you, Mr. Sandy Spencer? You popped in, teased us, and then dove out and came back in again.
Yeah, I got good sound.
Okay, good. Well, since we only got a 45-minute time limit, since we have more than 2 people on here, let's kind of get rolling. And as people kind of jump in, we'll just admit them in. So kind of like the last time we did the Zoom meeting, this is kind of a free for all. Feel free to ask questions. But kind of what we're going to start talking about tonight is setups and kind of a checklist that I go through each time when I get to a spot that I want to set up. And it's a little bit different with me because in the past, when I've talked about setups, I've talked about setting the shooter first, and then I will back up and get my calling situation set up once I've got the shooter fixed. I'm a little bit different because basically when we get to a spot, like say Bryce or Brandon are calling for me, I let those guys choose where they're going to call from. And then I go ahead and move forward and I choose my own setup spots just because I've been doing it for quite a while. And I mean, those guys are good at moving around left and right if they need to. But I also know how much movement I can get away with. And so I'm kind of mobile. I'm not just a statue up there when I'm up front. But there's definitely a few things that I want to have on a setup. And the first thing I look for is natural travel corridors. So especially if we have an elk located, he's out in front and I'm moving that towards that direction, from the caller, I know exactly where those guys are calling from. And then I will, as I'm moving out, I'm checking the wind, because basically I'm going to loop downwind of the caller a little bit, because typically that's what an elk's going to do. An elk's not going to come in straight on line. He's going to kind of loop around to the downwind side a little bit to use his ears and his nose. And so, but as I'm checking the wind and I'm kind of moving off to the side, I'm also looking for these natural travel corridors, and you can see them through brush or vegetation, or maybe an opening in the trees, or there's kind of a funnel with the topography. You can see specific landmarks that will go, okay, this guy where he's at coming towards the sound, he has a nice clear travel path right here. And that's one thing that I'm looking for. I don't want a bunch of brush in front of me that he's going to have to loop around or this or that. I want to, first thing on my checklist is that clear travel corridor, something that he's going to feel comfortable. But remember too, I'm moving far enough out that I'm setting myself up kind of on that hang up spot where he's going to get to that spot where he thinks he should be able to see the animal that's making noise. And that's pretty much where he's going to stop. And so that's why as I'm moving forward, I'm also looking back at those guys. Can I see them? How much can I see? What's my view or what's the elk's view going to be if he's coming in and can look to where that sound's coming from. And so this is all part of finding that first piece. Now, once I have that travel corridor, the second piece on my checklist is making sure that I have something behind me. I want something to break up my silhouette. And that's one of those things where you may have to go through this checklist a few times, because you may find a good travel corridor, but there's really nothing that's breaking up your silhouette. And on that travel corridor, I am going to move off to the side because I'm, ultimately trying to get that broadside shot. But unfortunately, sometimes they loop down a little bit farther downwind and we end up with that straight on shot. It happens. And so first is travel corridor. Second thing is something to break up my silhouette. Now, once I have that spot figured out and I know where I'm going to shoot from, I will actually take my feet and I will clear things out from underneath me, branches, pine cones, anything that if I shift my weight one way or another, anything that could possibly make any sort of sound, I want to clear those out. Because remember, we're not making any sound. We're basically setting up for an ambush with that elk coming by us. So we want to be as quiet as possible. And so I'm going to clear that stuff out. Third thing on my checklist, am I going to be standing or am I going to be kneeling? And that's where I'll look down the travel corridor, and I'll pick different paths too. He could come up to this point and then angle right or angle left. And I'm looking at everything. What's my better view? And ultimately, if I can kneel down, I'm going to, because I feel it takes our silhouette and just scrunches it down a little bit more. We're a little more hidden down closer to the ground, but also too, you're a little more stable in your shooting platform when you're kind of down on your knees. But then again, down on your knees has limitations, because, you may be standing and kind of looking and go, okay, I'm going to go ahead and kneel down. But as soon as you kneel down, nope, there's ground cover. There's huckleberry bushes. They're too tall. I'm not going to be able to shoot above them. So I do have to stand. So that's, next thing on my checklist. Am I standing or am I kneeling? Now, once I decide if I'm standing or kneeling, now I'm going to look at all of my shooting corridors. Oh, there goes the neighborhood. Mr. Larry's coming in now. So now we got to behave. So, Mr. Larry, welcome. I said, there goes the neighborhood. Mr. Larry's coming in. So we all got to behave now. So,
Hey, sir.
So we kind of got started a little bit. We started going down the checklist a little bit. So Larry, first thing on the checklist that I look for is travel corridors. Something that elk's going to feel comfortable traveling through. It's not a bunch of brush. And also in those travel corridors, the thing I forgot to mention is if I can see out a ways and see him coming is always nice too, because then you can really watch his path and you can adjust your body one way or another, whether he's going to loop to the right or loop to the left. So, okay. Second thing, Larry, is having something behind us that's breaking up our silhouette. So that way, we blend in well. Third thing is, now that we have that figured out, I will actually take my feet and clear the items out from underneath my feet, any sticks, any pine cones, anything like that, anything that can crunch or make sounds if I'm shifting weight. And then the fourth item was, am I standing or am I kneeling? And so that's kind of right where we were talking about now with standing or kneeling. And the way I do that is I prefer to kneel if I can, but sometimes we kneel down and we've got some tall huckleberry bushes or some ground vegetation that, is a little too tall. So we can't kneel down. So we have to stand. But the one thing that we do too is when I'm standing and I'm looking down that travel corridor and I'm trying to decide, okay, is he going to shift to the right or is he going to shift to the left of me? Which way is he really going to come in? I'm looking for anything that my arrow may possibly deflect off of. And you will be amazed how long you will stare at a shooting corridor that you think is perfectly clear until you release that arrow and there is one little twig from a tree that is about an 1/8 inch in diameter that will deflect your arrow enough to go over his back or something. I mean, it's amazing. You can stare at those things and it's like, nope, I'm clear. And as soon as you release that arrow, man, it's like somebody shines a light on that branch and goes, where the heck did that thing come from? I never saw that. Now, if I do see those, I will actually go out and break those off, clear them. But that's another also thing that when you're deciding whether standing or kneeling, maybe you've got some low-hanging branches that you can't stand and you have to kneel down. And so these are all things that you kind of got to run through this checklist while you're in your setup location of, do I have these clear lanes? Now, once I have all this figured out, I've got my lanes, I've cleared the brush, I've cleared the branches, I've cleared everything that may interfere with my arrow flight. Now I'm finally going to pull out my rangefinder. And now I'm going to range different yardages for trees. And I like to get 20, 30, 40. I usually don't range out past 40 just because that 40 yard is kind of usually my max on a first shot. There has been a lot of times that I've had bulls stop outside that 40 yard mark and it's like, it's only 48. That's only 8 more yards, but it's kind of one of those things where, you gotta stick to your guns because, sometimes we get too impatient in these and we end up actually not letting things develop. We actually try to rush or pressure or push the situation to where, had we actually just waited a little bit, like I said, that bull's hung up out there at 48 yards. Man, we just be patient, wait a little bit, and then all of a sudden he keeps walking in, and the next thing you know, he's at 22 yards. So, and that is one of the toughest things to do is be patient because I can guarantee you're sitting there, you're looking at that bull, and in your mind, you're like, he's going to bolt. Something's up. He's going to bolt. He's going to turn around. He's going to leave. And that's when we tend to kind of push or kind of rush the situation. So, Mr. Jim, good evening, bud. How you doing?
Hey man, sorry I'm late. I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, that's okay. We were just getting ready to wrap up. So glad you could jump in and say good night. So
I got here just in time. That's funny.
No. So, okay. So, but it's one of those things too that the 40 yard, I mean, my average shot on all the elk I've harvested is 22 yards. So, some have been under, some have been a little bit longer, but that for me personally, that 40 yard, I mean, I practice 50, 60 all year long and I'm comfortable shooting at those distances. But when you get into a hunting situation, there's one thing practicing on a range in a controlled environment at 60 yards versus being out hunting and you have weather, you have an animal that's unpredictable. You have your emotions, your adrenaline. There's a lot of factors that go through it. And especially when fairly new, your adrenaline is through the roof. And I mean, I hate to say it, but we kind of turn into idiots with everything that we practice throughout the year and everything that we learn, it just flies out the window. And it's like, I've never done this before. In fact, I almost think of, the movie Joe Dirt when he went to work on the oil rig and the oil spill. And he's just like, I'm new. I don't know what to do. And that's kind of how, a lot of new elk hunters get in that situation is they just forget and go blank about everything. And so patience is one of those things. Now, does that bull always go from 48 and then come walking into 22? No, not always. That may be, we may have just guessed wrong on the hang up spot and he actually hung up quicker because he could see back to where that sound's coming from. We kind of forget that they can see a heck of a lot better than what we can, through the timber. And so that's why sometimes when I'm heading out to pick my spot and then I'm looking back at where Bryce or Brandon are calling from, I will actually get down on my knees and pull my binoculars out and look back there. So if you've kind of noticed through all this, I kind of take my time a little bit, picking where I'm going to set up as the shooter, because setups are the most critical thing when working elk. The setups can make or break each encounter so very fast. So if you have the opportunity to take the time to really do your setup the right way, especially as the shooter, you're going to be so much better off. Now, mind you, Bryce and Brandon, they're already back behind me. They're calling while I'm doing all this. Usually I tell them, okay, let me move up once I get out of sight a little bit, or I give you a thumbs up, or, this, go ahead and start. And sometimes they're calling while I'm still moving, because, that bull may have changed his location, and then he cracks off, and it's like, okay, crap, I've got to go 45 yards to my right, because he moved locations. So that's one of those things too, is when I am up there, also one of the other things that I have on my checklist is, what adjustments do I have? Where can I move? And so that's why a lot of times, like I said, if I can set up to where I see that bull coming in, because I may be expecting him to come in on the left, but all of a sudden he's going to come in all the way on the right. So that's where I'm going to watch him. And when his eyes are shielded, I'm going to slowly rotate. So that way, I'm in position and I'm ready to go there. Okay. There we go. We were getting a little echo there. There we go. No, that didn't cure it. Okay. I think it's coming from somebody's speakers, but that's all right. So, okay. Anybody have any questions up to this point?
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So I didn't get an elk tag, I told you guys, but I ended up putting in for a leftover tag and
Yeah.
scored 2 tags. So we're going to go hunting. I'm sure. Last year, I find out, and I did the calf calls. And I was going to ask you, how long should you do a calf call until you move on, and how far should you move? And also, should you do the calf call through the grunt tube every now and again, but not too loud?
So you can. So you're talking about with the cow tag that you got, kind of the distress lost calf a little bit, playing on that maternal.
Yeah.
So, you usually on those, it'll, if you think about, or, and you can YouTube lost calf, and you'll see videos of them. They are constantly, yeah. I mean, they're vocal. There's a lot of urgency, and they may, stop with the sounds for only 2, 3, 4 minutes, and then they break it up again, or crank it up again. And they're doing it while they're moving too. So they don't just set in one space. And so that's the key. If you're doing it, kind of move around a little bit, give it the appearance that you're really moving around. You're really searching. And if you're moving from one call up or one setup spot where you're calling to another, do some sounds while you're moving too.
Okay.
Give that appearance that calf is searching. It's on the move. And
Okay.
as far as through the grunt tube, yeah, you can do it through the grunt tube, because that grunt tube is actually just going to give you a little bit more projection, a little bit more urgency. And that's one of those things that you can use to ramp it up a little bit.
Okay, probably not too loud on the tube.
You're not going to blast it with the volume like a bugle. So, but yeah, you're still going to be fairly soft on the call. Project it. Let the tube do the projection for you.
Okay.
And that's where that little game changer. You guys have seen me play with that little game changer. That game changer is great for that example right there.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? And I think Sandy and Andy, you guys are muted, and Larry's muted, and Greg's muted. Okay, nobody.
We were just trying to cut the echo.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure where it's stemming from, but okay. All right. So the other thing, so pretty much that's kind of my checklist that I run through. But even though I have that one spot set, I am looking at other options, and I already have a game plan that if that bull changes the path that he's in, I already have locations that I can move to. So I'm always thinking ahead. So I'm not just locked into this spot because, like I said, they are animals. They can come in a different direction. They can do a lot of things differently. So we have to have plans as well. And the more proactive we can be, the better off we're going to be. So just remember, you want to be more proactive than you are reactive in this situation. You want to try to account and eliminate as many variables as possible, which is really tough sometimes. So, especially on public land, and especially with elk. But the more prepared you can be, the better off you're going to be. Especially if you do have to move a little bit. And what I'll do is I will drop my pack. I'll just go ahead and drop my pack right where I'm set. And if I do have to move, I'll leave my pack there. So, because I'm usually not moving that far, that then after the shot, I can just leave my bow right where I just shot from and then go back and get my pack. Which I will tell you on that, sometimes, especially if you get the adrenaline rush after a shot like I do, your mind just turns to gumbo and you walk up and pick up your pack and then you turn back to go where your bow is sitting on the ground and everything in the forest looks exactly the same. And then you spend about 5-10 minutes figuring out where the heck you put your bow on the ground where you were from. And then you get back down there and then it's like, okay, now let's remember where that elk was to kind of start the process. And usually at that point, once I'm to the point, I've made the shot, he's ran off and I'm ready to go up and get my pack. I'm going to go ahead and do the turkey sounds to Bryce or Brandon, let them know, okay, shots happen, go ahead and come on up. But usually they already know that because after the shot, I'm usually doing a couple of soft cow sounds just to kind of calm that elk down a little bit. And so, Mr. Larry, here's your call and tip for the day. So not really. I have another one that I'm going to hit, but that just made me a point. You'll see in a lot of videos that after somebody shoots, so many people want to grab their bugle tube and scream a bugle at that bull. Remember, bugles are heightened emotion, especially when you're working a bull. So the last thing you want to do is you don't want to shoot a bull and then scream at him with an emotional filled bugle. Soft, mellow cow calls. And that's about it. I'm not doing a bunch. I'm not doing a lot of excitement. I'm trying to calm that bull down. And a lot of times they don't know what happened. They don't know if they got bit by a bald-faced hornet or, something like that. So doing a soft call can get them to calm down. And there's a lot of times I've managed to be able to stop that bull within sight and then watch him tip over, which makes tracking a breeze. So if you can see them go down, a lot easier to find. Definitely. So, okay. Any questions? No? No. Okay. Well, there's kind of my checklist on setups when I'm the shooter. Now, setups when I'm the caller, if I have somebody new, like I said, I'm going to drop them at the point. I'm going to go through this checklist when I'm up with them to get them set up, and then I'm dropping back as the caller. Things I look for in the checklist I run through when I'm calling is, do I have trees that I can rake on? Do I have brush? Because brush, a lot of times when I'm back there calling, and especially if I'm doing the breeding sequence, I will pull on leaves. I'll make it give the appearance that this elk is wandering around nibbling on leaves. And again, it's a low audible sound that a lot of people are like, yeah, it's a waste of time. They're not going to be able to hear that, but you'll be amazed how much that sound does carry. It adds realism into it. And then raking with those trees that I found that I can rake, I'm going to find me a few good sticks for raking. And I normally have those sticks leaned up on 2, 3, maybe 4 different raking trees, because as I'm moving around doing that breeding sequence, I don't always want to rake from the one same place. I want to give that appearance that the elk are moving around. The other checklist is I want to make sure I have some sort of concealment between me and the shooter so that I can have that movement. That's the important thing too. And there are times that, you may not have real good concealment. And so once that bull cracks off and he's getting fairly close to the hang up spot, that you do kind of have to stay in one spot. And then you kind of use, your hand and moving your head in direction to broadcast that sound in different directions. So the checklist is a lot smaller when I'm back on the calling side. And sometimes what I'll do is I will actually have 2 or 3 diaphragm reeds out laying on my pack, because the fact that you are doing a lot of calling, maybe one of those latex gets saturated with saliva, swap it out for a fresh one. Swap those out, have 2 or 3 on there that you can, trade out on. And so that way you have those fresh, snappy sounds. Okay. There's my checklist. Questions? Larry, you had so many questions last time we did this Zoom meeting. Oh, now he's trying to find the unmute button.
Well, last time you gave us warning that we need to be prepared with questions.
Well, I figured you just held on to a bunch of those since we didn't get to them.
No, we covered them pretty well.
Good. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking I like the interaction with the Zoom. It's tough sometimes, especially like 2 weeks ago with that one. Nobody was saying anything, no questions were coming in, and I don't know, sometimes it's kind of tough just sitting here when I feel like it's little old me just talking to myself. So I kind of like the Zoom deal. What's that, Andy?
It's a staring contest.
The staring contest. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So let's get into the sound for the night.
Not all of us are as photogenic as Larry.
Look at you. You finally turned your camera on. Welcome to the party. So I was wondering, you held out quite a while there. It's like, I ain't turning my camera on. So.
Well, I try and keep as quiet as I can because I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old in the background.
So turn the volume up and I'll just start cracking bugles and we'll just, we'll get them riled up in a hurry.
There we go.
Yeah. So, all right. So tonight's sound is a small sound, but it's a sound that actually has a lot of importance to it. And it's called the demanding mew. It's a very, very soft sound. You guys ever hear me talk about that one a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So the demanding mew, if you remember, it's like an exclamation point. It's like in our language now, telling our kids, come here now. That's what the demanding mew is. The demanding mew is that exclamation point that adds importance to any sound. And you can follow up any cow vocalization with that demanding mew. But the key thing that they do with it is usually they will link together 3 or 4 of the sound that they're doing and then follow it with the demanding mew. So, think of, the assembly mew. See how they kind of string some of those together and then mix that demanding mew in there. It's just adding that exclamation point. And you can do it with the others too, like the regathering mew. notice, you know, I opened up and really emphasized that regathering mew, but as soon as I added the demanding mew, I went back to soft on it. So, and the way you do that is you just bring your lips together. You have just a really slight opening in your lips, and that's how you kind of control. The other way is with your diaphragm. You're not putting a lot of air pressure out on that demanding mew. It is a very, very soft call, but it is something that, especially as you're ramping up. So, you know, Jim, that lost excited calf, you're stringing a bunch of them together, close your lips a little bit and do a soft demanding mew to add that at the end, to add that exclamation point, add that urgency in there.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
Andy's getting going. What are you working on there?
Summer sausage and jerky.
So for those of you that don't know, and actually, Greg, you're probably the only one that can take advantage of it. Andy owns Get Your Meat LLC here in Boise, does wild game processing, smoking. If you want to take some wild game to him, have him make you his jalapeno cheddar summer sausage.
You mean like that?
Exactly. Slice that up on a cracker with cheese. It's the best thing to. If there's a group of people,
for you, buddy.
That one's for me.
This is for you. Happy birthday.
Thanks, brother. That'll make Liz and Jess and everybody happy, because the last time they attacked that last one that Kelly gave me, all I've been hearing is, when are you getting more?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
So, but yeah, Greg, there's another
that.
alternative for you to take your wild game to. So
I'll look into it.
So, yep. Andy, you're on Facebook, Instagram, all over the place.
Google. Yeah, Facebook and Google.
Yeah. Just don't go to his TikTok account. He dances in there shirtless, and it's just not a pretty sight.
They keep taking all my posts off of TikTok.
So,
How about nudity or something? I don't know.
yeah, I know. All right, guys, we got about 6 minutes left. So anybody got any questions, topics, anything they want to cover in the last 6 minutes?
That's not a question. Did anybody see that post on Facebook today from the 300 road in Arizona, where the guy videoed an albino cow?
Mm-mm.
That's going elk hunting in that same spot area.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
The whole herd with an albino.
I've seen piebald quite a bit, which is kind of the mix of the white and the tan, but pure albino, that's a little rare.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I saw a couple of weeks ago where somebody got an albino turkey.
Wow.
And no, it wasn't a farm raised one. It was a true wild albino turkey. All right, guys. Anything else? Greg, you're good. Larry?
Who got drawn for hunts this year?
I drew a sweet OTC tag.
You what?
I drew a sweet OTC tag.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we're excited. So
I didn't get drawn, so I'm probably going to go on the dark side and get a landowner tag and take a rifle.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, Liz and I just bought a couple of new rifles, and so we're getting her set up for. Actually, we bought each other new rifles, and then we bought Baku e-bikes to go hit some basins on her rifle elk hunt, where we're just going to kind of set up and glass these basins for them coming out and going in, feeding, and should be a good time. Kind of excited to shoot this new rifle platform.
Great.
Mr. Sandy?
Got nothing. Just did a eastern half of Washington State archery over the counter.
Nice.
Hopefully this year I'll find something before the last 2 days of season. I spent
Sometimes it happens that way.
2 weeks hiking last year before I finally found some.
Yeah, sometimes you're gonna head back to that same area where you found them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back in, hoping the next couple of weeks get some cams out there and do some scouting, put out a mineral block and such.
Yeah, see, you guys can do that. We don't get that advantage of mineral blocks. So
We can't use cameras here anymore.
I know, I heard that.
Yeah.
At all.
No,
So
not for hunting. No.
that's, I've been kind of on the fence with that. I mean, I see the advantages of trail cameras, but you know what, was also successful for a lot of years and didn't even run trail cameras. So they are a great tool. I guess it's just another excuse to go spend more time out hiking around and doing glassing and scouting.
Well, you walk up to a water hole and find 36 of them on there. There's a problem.
And that could be why they did it. I mean, I've seen some posts from people where, on social media where somebody will drive a post in the, metal T-post and put a camera on it, and they come back 2 weeks later and there's a dozen cameras on that same thing. That's just crazy.
That's a perfect hint not to hunt there. Too busy.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, though, in some of those areas where, your water sources are those tanks, don't have a lot of other options. I mean, unfortunately, those get a lot of competition. That's when you kind of start thinking outside of the box and start trying to hit those corridors and try to set yourself up where people aren't. Easier said than done sometimes. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and call it for tonight. I did record this, so for those of you that kind of jumped in a little bit late, I'll post the replay up if you want to go back and kind of watch the first part of it with kind of the first pieces of the checklist that we kind of talked to and in the parameters in that. So we will sign off for tonight. Appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, and as always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, though, have fun, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. And I think we're going to do another Zoom meeting.
Hey, thanks a lot. Good meeting.
You
Enjoyed
bet.
it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Take care. Good
Good night,
night.
guys.